Michael Chandler is attempting one last ditch effort to desperately coax Conor McGregor into fighting him after missing his opportunity at UFC 303 because Conor McGregor pulled out with a broken pinky toe. And I have to be honest, some of these interviews are hard to watch. It took me 2 days, bits and pieces, to watch the two interviews that we're going to take a look at today. They are downright delusional. They are embarrassing. But he starts to kind of hint that he may move on. He finally is starting to come around to the idea of potentially moving on to another option. So we're going to take a look at those interviews. But right as I was about to do this video, Michael Chandler posted a stunning revelation on Twitter. And I really, truly believe there's a lot of talk about this right now because it's crazy what Michael Chandler's posting on Twitter now. But I think it's one last really heavy ditch effort begging Conor McGregor, please fight me, Conor. Please fight me, Conor. And if what Chandler said on Twitter is true, I don't necessarily believe it, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. The sport is ruined. The sport is completely ruined. So let's jump right into it. Michael Chandler does an interview with Brett Okamoto, ESPN. And I want to point out right off the jump, this video is in 720p. So it's better camera quality than Brett Okamoto's normal camera. But why is ESPN MMA uploading videos and doing interviews in 720p? Absolute embarrassment. But Brett Okamoto actually pressed him. There were some questions where Okamoto was like, basically trying to hit Chandler, I think it's time to move on. Chandler, I think it's time to move on. I think I left like one or two of the questions in. But we're going to take a look at all the things that he said. And then we're going to take a look at like a press conference he did at 303. And another thing I meant to mention off the jump, in a couple of these clips, Michael Chandler basically admits my assessment of the entire McGregor-Chandler saga over the past year and a half has been dead accurate. And I will point that out when we get to it. So let's jump off right away with a statement about Chandler finding out the fight was canceled. Another thing that I got completely accurate, that Michael Chandler had no idea what was going on. Listen to this.
But yeah, Hunter called me and broke the news. Obviously, so it all started with the canceled press conference, right? So that was the first call that I got. I didn't fly over to Ireland. I stayed stateside, thank God. And that was when the rumors started swirling. Was it an injury? What was it? What was going on? Had a couple calls with Hunter.
So he had no idea what was going on. And by the way, when he finally got the call that it was canceled, I think he says it here in a second, he found out that Thursday that Ariel basically reported it, basically dropped the news. Or he didn't drop it first. Dana White put out the announcement.
Dana and we were continuing to move forward, business as usual. And maybe I have too much respect for Conor. Maybe I had high hopes for Conor, but
you do, Chandler. You have too much respect.
He had never pulled out of a fight before. He has gone into fights injured before. But I think stepping in the octagon against me with a broken pinky toe or whatever injury it may be is a little bit different than fighting other guys. So I take it as a compliment. But got that call from Hunter, and it was a gut punch, but here we are.
So he was heartbroken. But by the way, I think I trimmed up this clip a little bit because I don't want to make the video too long. But he got the call on that Thursday that we all found out. So he didn't find out. He didn't have any heads up. And that's why it was the ultimate gut punch. So next clip. And also he's coping there. Like, yeah, there's no way he wants to step in the cage with me with a broken pinky toe. He alludes to that in the press conference that we're going to take a look at as well. So next clip. Jump ahead. He kind of I don't want to say it's trash talk. He's kind of alluded to this before, but it seems like he's starting to get at wit's end, and he's trying. These are like little tiny breadcrumbs of like trying to use reverse psychology on Conor McGregor. Listen to this.
Just kind of trying to wait me out, making me holding out long enough to where I just moved on and fought somebody else so he could fight, in my opinion, an easier opponent than me. But I don't think it's a lack of commitment to the game as much as it is a unfortunate set of circumstances and him realizing who he is now, needing to be 100% if you're going to compete against me.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. He's kind of coping again. Yeah, there's no way he's going to step in the cage with me with a broken pinky toe. But it's one of those things. But also he's saying, yeah, I'm thinking he's trying to wait me out. I've been saying this from the beginning. Why would Conor come back and fight Chandler when he can get like a Nate Diaz fight potentially, if the UFC is willing to oblige? But I think a new contract needs to be signed. There's a bunch of other things that go into that. But why would he come back and fight Chandler? I don't think Conor wants to fight Chandler. Conor could fight a broomstick and it's still going to do mega pay-per-view buys. Chandler, as exciting as he is, and I love to watch Chandler fight. That's why I've been on this case from the beginning, but also because of the Wolf tickets that have been sold to you guys. Why would Conor want to come back and fight Chandler when Chandler adds nothing to the pay-per-view value? And that's a fact. Chandler or a broomstick, it's going to be the same. Next clip. This is where he starts to hint that he's moving on. And I think this entire narrative about him moving on, I think he's starting to come to the realization he should probably move on, but he doesn't want to believe it just yet. But he's putting this out there to tell Conor, yeah, Conor, I may not wait on you. You better give me confirmation, because Chandler has no idea what's going on. And by the way, we're going to take a look at what Dana White had to say. Dana White was asked about Michael Chandler, and he said something that probably lit a fire under Chandler, like maybe I shouldn't wait anymore. But we'll look at that at the end of the video as well.
I think we'll know more in a week or two. We got some options. They're working through some things, and they will let me know. But as you said, I had enough assurances throughout this entire process behind the scenes to know that we were going to stay on this train till we got to UFC 303, and now obviously beyond.
We had enough assurances we were going to wait till 303 and now beyond. And I'll tell you this, we're going to look at it in a minute. At the press conference, they asked, do you have like a time frame you're ready to give up on this? Like, is it going to be 2.5 years, 3 years, 4 years? And he really says, I haven't really thought that far ahead yet. Could not believe it, but we'll get that in a second. Now, this next clip, Brett Okamoto asked him a question, a very upfront question, and watch Michael Chandler take a deep breath here, because he's like, you know. And Brett Okamoto actually asked some good questions in this interview. That's why I wanted to feature it in this video. By the way, both videos, or all 3 videos I'm going to show you in this video, I will link down in the description if you want to check them out in their entirety.
Throughout this entire process, have you been rock steady that he was always going to fight you? I mean, that's what you said publicly. Have you really, truly believed that? And
so have you truly believed you're going to fight Conor McGregor? And I've been telling you guys for a while that Chandler had no idea what was going on. I've been telling you guys for a while that Chandler was getting scared and nervous and checking Conor McGregor's social media every hour on the hour, trying to get updates. And he admits here that he's a little bit worried. And he was a little bit worried.
do you still believe it?
By the way, look at that deep breath. Yeah, that tells you all. That told me all I needed to know.
I think over the course of maybe late 2023, when every single week he was tweeting about someone else and wanting to do this and wanting to do that, but I can tell you this, like.
So basically, yeah, he was nervous because when Conor's tweeting about this person or that person, and keep in mind, this fight was rumored so many different dates, which Chandler actually talks about in the press conference. Next clip, moving on. I'm trying to move rapid fire here. There's a lot to digest here. This is where, again, he's really trying to push for the Conor fight. He has to fight me. He has to come back and fight me.
He still said when he comes back, he has to fight you. Mm-hmm. So when that when I hear that, I'm going to take them at their word. And because you got to remember, every single guy ranked 2 above me, 2 below me, all of those guys were getting booked. All of those guys were fighting each other. Mm-hmm. I could have gotten that call. I could have called them at any given time and said, hey, I'm jumping into a 6-week training camp.
Basically, the UFC didn't want me to sit out. Conor isn't making me sit out. I decided that I'm sitting out. But when he comes back, he has to fight me. Keyword comes back, Chandler. He may never come back. And now you've already wasted almost 2 years waiting for him to come back.
And I'll fight this guy whenever. I've been steadfast that I want to fight Conor, and I believe that is going to happen. And I still believe even more now, because now you have a contract signed, and then 15 days before that fight gets postponed. So now him and I are even more linked than we were before this fight got announced back in, what was it, UFC 300. So the fight's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen in short order.
Imagine this was some professional that, performs surgeries, and every single time they cancel or they fucked up your surgery or whatever it may be, and they keep, look, I'm going to get it right this time. He keeps selling wolf tickets to the fans, and that drives me nuts, man. It's like, yeah, it's going to happen. I'm convinced it's going to happen. I'm 100% sure it's going to happen on this date. I'm 100% sure it's going to happen. I'll never forget June of last year, June of 2023. We're in July of 2024. There was an interview he did with Aaron Bronstetter where he said, yeah, I'm confident that we'll be fighting before the end of the year. And now he's saying this. I mean, just delusional. Now, we're going to listen to another question here in a second and listen to the gulp from Michael Chandler, because he knows, man. He knows. He's starting to come to the realization.
Regardless of what happens, whether you end up fighting him, whether you move on to something else, do you think that you will look back on this time in your career and be like, "Dang, I lost it," and that, like, do you think that'll eat at you? How do you think you'll view the last 2 years?
I think it has the potential to do that. I mean, we're human beings. We are prone to wander. We are prone to have those, think about what we could or could not have done.
So he's going to regret it. He should have moved on. The thing is, if he would have fought 6 months ago, he could have still fought Conor when he comes back. And he even alludes to that at some point. I can't remember if it's in this interview or the press conference. But he could have just moved on and still fought Conor eventually if they were willing to give him that fight anyway. But he goes on to say some of the most delusional things that I've heard Chandler say in this entire ordeal. Listen to this.
Differently, and do we have regret from it? I can tell you I do not regret a thing about this process. I do believe the way that I have responded to how I have lived this out and how I have responded through every single aspect of this should be a blueprint for a lot of people to look to in how to handle uncertainty in your life. So if I got to be that guy who's got to climb this hill, maybe die on that hill, we'll find out.
You will die on that hill. He literally said he should be looked at as a model. He should be looked at as a blueprint. He's going to die on this hill. It's crazy to me about how other fighters should handle their career. He came into the UFC and said, "I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time." He's here for a long time and not for a good time. He's wasted 2 years of his prime for a fight that still is not booked. He wants other fighters to look at that and be like, you know what? What a true, utter role model that Michael Chandler is. And listen, what's even crazier is when kind of confronted with the fact that this fight may never happen, he had the audacity to say this. Listen to this.
Ever had. So 38 years old, I think I can do this till I'm 45. So we'll see. I think we're good.
So we're good. I'll wait till I'm 45. I put a thumbnail out. I want to say it was earlier this year. Fight not happening until 2026, something like that. That may end up being accurate. He may wait around for another year, 2 years, and finally be like, you know, I'm going to give up. I'm into my 40s now. You know, I'm 42. I waited for Conor McGregor for the last 4 years of my life. Now it's time for me to break through at 42, Glover Teixeira style. 2 more clips that I have from this interview before we move on to the actual press conference, which were pretty telling as well. Look, this is really just him coping. I don't even like to use the word coping because it's become like a hot buzzword for the MMA community. This is him like saying, like, look, I got investments. Everything's great. My wife works and makes a lot of money. But yeah, my UFC career is where I make the most money, but I've been all right.
Number one job, my highest paying job, but I think it says a lot that I've been the guy who has been outside of the octagon for the better part of 18 to 20 months and haven't collected a UFC paycheck. Still got my house, still made investments.
By the way, I wanted to show that clip because that confirms the UFC's not paying him anything on the side. They're not saying, "Oh, Chandler, here, let's cut you a check because you've been waiting for so long." They're not paying him.
And still have invested in numerous other companies. We got a bunch of stuff going on. It's nice that my wife works. She loves to work. I would never take that away from her. So obviously we are a dual income family, and I've stayed busy. But
dude said I would never take that away from her. All right, Sean Strickland, you get to demand whether or not she works or not.
It's going to be a big fight. I will get paid well, and.
By the way, he's not getting paid 10 times what he would normally make. That's an outright lie by Conor McGregor, in case someone's going to comment that down below.
A lot more now when it does happen because of all this stuff happening. And maybe it was just supposed to work out this way for me to have more money and make more money. I don't know. But I'm enjoying the ride, man, and I regret none of it. And, yeah, I will collect that paycheck with a smile on my face.
He's in denial. And how is he going to make more because of this? That doesn't add up. I don't know if he's saying there's going to be more pay-per-view sales or the UFC is going to give him a bonus for waiting. I think the UFC looks at him as pathetic, to be quite honest. And we're going to listen to what Dana has to say because Dana had some advice for him at the post-fight presser for 303. This last little clip I want to show you is Brett Okamoto being an absolute savage here. So Brett Okamoto, I'm convinced now ESPN and the UFC are parting ways because Brett Okamoto has faded into irrelevancy. He hasn't been around too much. And now he's kind of shitting on Chandler here. Listen to what he has to say.
Round now.
All right, man. Well, you're taking it in stride as I'm not surprised that you're taking it in stride, but my condolences. We wanted to see the fight.
My condolences. Dude told him my condolences. Let's move on to the press conference he had at UFC 303. Some of these points may be a little bit redundant, but there's some new ones in here that are just, it's like, come on, Chandler. Come on, Chandler. Like, move on, bro. And he does hint at that a little bit here. That's why I want to show you. But in the beginning of this, he talks about how he was not informed of the injury or what was going on, and that he found out basically like everyone else.
I wasn't even really informed of what it was besides possibly an injury, right? Obviously, they're not allowed to tell me what the injury is, how severe it is. They have a duty to keep that stuff private. I didn't find out what the actual injury was until Conor posted it, and that's the way it should be. I don't want to know what is ailing on my opponents, and I don't want anybody to know what's ailing on me.
So there you go. He didn't know anything. He was left in the dark. The UFC called him and said, "Don't come to Dublin. The press conference is postponed." If only somebody could have known immediately that the fight was canceled. That would have been awesome if somebody could have informed their audience that the fight was canceled immediately. But Chandler didn't know. He thought it was going to continue. It's going to carry on. He had no idea what the injury was. Next clip, rapid fire. Let's move through these quickly. This one's kind of similar to something he said in the previous interview. But this is his version of shit talking Conor McGregor. Because he rim jobs him so much, this is the best that he can muster in terms of shit talk. I really think if Chandler just started going in on Conor, he'd be more likely to get an opportunity to fight him at this point. The fans would get behind him more instead of crapping on him a bit.
Also is just somewhat of a feather in my cap. If Conor was lined up against a lot of other guys, he probably would have pushed through and fought. But you don't want to fight a guy like me with any kind of injuries. And he's going to come into the next fight, whenever it is, with bumps and bruises. Obviously, he was hobbling around on it and probably said, "Hey, man, there's no way I could fight, but I'm not fighting that guy." And
so there you go. Just, yeah, he would never fight me. I've been lifting heavy weights. I've had one dude on my mind. And, yeah, of course he's going to pull out with a broken pinky toe because he's pissed. Ultimately, he's actually pissed. Like, dude, you pulled out with a broken pinky toe. I honestly believe if Chandler had both of his legs amputated from the knee down a week before the scheduled date, I think he would have still went forward with the fight. That's how desperate he is for it. Next clip. Now, this one's actually pretty interesting because he's still, like, pressed on the Conor fight. Like, when he returns, I will be fighting him no matter what. It's going to happen. Like, who are you trying to convince? I told you guys from the beginning, this dude's trying to manifest it for himself. He's not convincing us. He's trying to convince himself that it's going to happen.
I mean, Conor can't, at this point, and I've said this publicly, I'm not letting him off the hook. For a while there, yeah, of course, he would love to come back and fight somebody other than Michael Chandler with what I bring to the octagon. I think there's no way he comes back to the UFC and doesn't fight me. So the
sanctity of the Ultimate Fighter. What about the sanctity of the Ultimate Fighter? They coach. They have to fight each other. When did the Ultimate Fighter end at this point for them? Wasn't that like around this time? I think it was August of last year. So coming up on a year since the Ultimate Fighter finished airing, let alone finish filming.
If I do pivot, if there are other names being...
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, here it is. This is the part that I really want you guys to see. If I pivot, I'm still going to fight Conor when he comes back. Listen to this.
The UFC and doesn't fight me. So if I do pivot, if there are other names being thrown out, if there are huge fights that I can go ahead and pivot and take, whenever he is ready to come back, his road back to the UFC goes straight through Nashville, Tennessee, and Michael Chandler, and that's it.
Just a walk-on kid. Let me give him applause finally. I've been saying this for a year and a half. You can move on, Chandler. You can fight someone else. And you could still fight Conor when he comes back. There's no either or. You can literally fight. You can literally fight him and you can fight someone else while you wait for him. It's not that hard. So please do pivot, Chandler. Please do pivot. Next up, he starts to talk about other options here. Listen to this. And this is very interesting because these interviews are the first time that he really even started hinting at other options.
Duty to look at other options. There's some great options out there. A lot of options that you guys have all heard.
By the way, these clips are awfully strange to hear now, seeing what Michael Chandler tweeted out about 20 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, since I started this video. Basically tweeted out right as I'm starting this video. Very weird to hear, but we'll get to that in a second.
And I love fighting. I love fighting big names, big fights, big venues, big opportunities.
Could have fooled me. You could have fooled me, Chandler. You've been sitting on the sidelines forever.
And I've got a lot of options, but we're still focused on Conor.
There you go. He's still focused on Conor. We got a lot of options. Next clip. I feel like I kind of took this one to heart. This was about me. This was about me right here. I'm kidding. But he's asked about the online haters. How have you felt about the online haters and detractors? And you know what? What Chandler said is actually accurate. It's actually accurate here. They're not haters. You know, people said, Joe, you're only saying the Chandler-Conor McGregor fight isn't happening because you hate Chandler. It makes absolutely zero logical sense. If you unpack that in any, reasonable capacity, it makes no sense. How would that make sense to say that like I have an influence over whether it happens? I'm just giving you my best educated guess based on the evidence. The reason I've been telling you guys that the fight isn't happening is because I believe that it was not going to happen, and I didn't want you guys buying into wolf tickets. And the reason I was complaining about Chandler this entire time is because I love to watch Michael Chandler fight. I've been watching him since his Bellator days. His early Bellator days. I watched the fights with Eddie Alvarez. I seen him call timeout against Will Brooks. I was happy when he got signed with the UFC. I like watching this guy fight, and that's a lot of fans, and a lot of frustration. It's like, this is one of the most exciting guys on the roster, and he's just sitting out. Conor ruined his career. I hate Conor for it, to be quite honest.
There's moments where I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe these guys are right, but...
Thank you. Pure vindication for me.
Most of the time they aren't. There's just not enough actual information out there, and it's all a matter of opinion, especially in 2024 with social media. I mean, if anything, if you read between the lines of the negative comments, it's not that people, obviously the haters are going to hate, right? But so many people just want to see me fight. I take it as a compliment when people...
Yeah, and you should have actually fought instead of sitting out wasting your career. It makes absolutely no sense. And a lot of the haters were right. I was considered a hater when I said, look, this fight isn't happening summer 2023. This fight isn't happening fall of 2023. This fight isn't happening December of 2023. This fight isn't happening at UFC 300. This fight isn't happening at UFC 303. And now I still do not believe it's going to happen. Some people mistook my words when I say, yeah, it might still happen. I can believe it's not going to happen and still admit factually we don't know for 100% certainty that it's not going to happen. I still do not believe this fight happens. It's not going to happen in September. It's not going to happen in October. There may be some evidence that come out that changes my mind. But right now, as we sit here, I do not believe this fight ever happens. I'm starting to more and more believe that Conor McGregor never fights in the UFC again, to be quite honest. Unless he gets a new contract, and that just, changes everything at that point. But we'll wait till we get there. Next clip. I mean, this is more delusional. This is one of the most delusional things I've ever heard him say. And this is something he kind of said in the ESPN Brett Okamoto interview. But again, he says, look, I'm the blueprint for other fighters to follow to how they should handle their careers. What? In what capacity? It makes absolutely no sense.
And truthfully, people can criticize what I have done and how I have handled this and the decisions that I have made or not made. But the way that I have gone about this is a blueprint for how people can or should be handling the circumstances that they have to go through in life.
What was that word salad? Nobody should be following Michael Chandler's career path and trying to recreate it, especially not the last 2 years. To sit on the sidelines and pray that somebody might show you attention. Pray that another grown man might take you to a public restroom so you can go consensually. No other fighter should follow that blueprint ever.
And if I have to be that guy who falls on that sword, and I have to be that guy who climbs that hill, that's the hill I'm going to keep on climbing until this fight gets booked.
I'm going to fall on that sword. I swear these interviews are so tough to watch, but once I get the clips out and I'm reacting to it for you guys, this shit just makes me laugh. By the way, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, please like the video. Please share the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Because believe me, stomaching Michael Chandler's interviews are very, very tough. You guys get to see, 2, 3, 5, maybe 10 minutes of clips. I have to stomach like 50 minutes of this just so I can get the best, most delusional moments and most telling moments so I can break them down for you. Next clip. He's just outright lying here. He's asked, and I think I left the question in here, so I'll just play it actually.
And you mentioned it's been 1.5 years of your life. It could potentially be 2 years, if you're waiting for another date. If it never happens, are you okay with that, with your career?
Absolutely. Is it going to be a little bit of a letdown? Yeah, but I'm not in control of this. You're not in control of this.
You quite literally are. You could have fought someone else. You said it just a minute ago that you could have asked for another fight.
Not just my UFC career, but my entire life. We're not in control. So would I look at it and say, okay, maybe that was wasted time, but maybe it wasn't, you know? I've done a lot of growing over the last year and a half. It's been really enjoyable, a lot of fun.
So there you go. He's been doing a lot of growing, lifting heavy weights, one dude on his mind, going to WWE Raw, you know, claiming get your candy ass back in the cage. Complete embarrassment. At this point, I've become desensitized to these embarrassing statements by Chandler. Next clip. I'm 100% vindicated here. I'm still taking apologies down in the comments, by the way. If you want to issue an apology to me, I'm taking apologies here. Listen to this.
Whole booking and falling apart and fake date back in December and fake date back in October and all the different. This fight's been talked about and rumored for just about every month of the 12-month calendar.
And who has been telling you guys it's not going to happen? I'm not even trying to take some victory lap here, okay? My point is, it angers me and annoys me when people were like, Joe, you just hate on him. No, they were selling you a fight that wasn't going to happen. Chandler was going on TMZ. Chandler was going on the MMA Hour and saying, guys, get excited. It's happening this fall. I don't know specifically fall, but you get my point. It's going to happen, guaranteed by the end of the year. Guaranteed UFC 300. He's going on TMZ. 100% confident. I'm leaving my family in January. He left his family in January for this fight. And a lot of fans, and people have told me who are massive Conor fans mainly. Dude, I was so excited for Conor to return. I thought you were crazy saying he wasn't going to. And now I don't have any excitement anymore. Because I don't feel like this fight's actually ever going to happen. So I was just trying to break it down for you guys. And then the last clip we're going to show from Chandler before we get to the tweets and what Dana White had to say is just, I mean, even more hilarious. Just basically he says he has no regrets and, you know, he has assurances, I believe he says as well.
Regrets?
No regrets, because I still say I had enough reassurances behind the scenes, conversations that you guys will never hear about, assurances that you guys have never heard or will have heard about.
Well, how have those assurances worked out for you, Chandler?
There's so much going on behind the scenes that is not public knowledge.
And you're not privy to any of it. They just tell you to show up on a date, you show up. Let's look at what Dana had to say. He's getting all these assurances. Let's look at Baldy and Mr. Power Slap Cup. Let's see what he had to say when asked about Chandler and McGregor. And would you advise Chandler to sit out and wait for the McGregor fight? And what's the timetable on McGregor's return? Let's see what Dana White had to say on Saturday night. So it's Monday night, so 2 nights ago, 48 hours ago. Listen to this.
You know, we talked to him. He said, listen, I'm still waiting around. I'm not letting him off the hook. What do you think? At this point, do you recommend Michael Chandler waits for Conor McGregor, or do you feel like it's time to throw some different names at him and get Michael Chandler back in the octagon?
I never recommend waiting. Time is not your friend in this business, but, you know, Michael's been around for a long time. He's accomplished a lot of things. He's at that point in his career. Maybe that's what he wants to do.
I don't recommend anybody to wait, but yeah, Chandler's smart. You know, he's already made a lot of money. He's older. You know, he's accomplished a lot. It doesn't matter if he completely wrecks his career in the last, 2 years, 3 years of his career and wastes it all away. Does that seem very reassuring from Dana White? Dana could have easily said, look, we're going to figure it out. Chandler's going to, sit out and wait for the Conor fight. We'll figure it out eventually at some point in the near future. But no, that's not it. And then he gets directly asked, what's the timetable for Conor's return?
He's not a dumb guy. He's a smart kid. So
I'd have to disagree on that one. Agree to disagree.
Whatever he wants to do.
Do you have any time updates on Conor, like how the toe's healing?
No. I'm not even talking about Conor until Conor's done, ready to fight, and all that stuff.
So we're in July, or this was technically at the end of June, but we're in July, and Dana, I'm not even talking about Conor. I'm not even thinking of Conor. I don't know when Conor's going to fight again. Yeah, that seems really reassuring for Michael Chandler. And if all this wasn't embarrassing enough, Michael Chandler has put out a series of cryptic tweets today. Let's take a look at it. So this is the, hold on, we'll get to that in a second. Big weekend of talks and clarity. New date loading. This is 4 hours ago from the time I'm recording this video. So this is roughly 6 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, new date loading. Let's see what he has to say next. This is the big one. I've been offered Islam Makhachev in October, but if the notorious Little pinky toe is ready by September. Let's do the Sphere. Biggest sporting event in the history of sports. Riyadh season. Hashtag UFC 306. This has garnered a lot of attention. If you see 1.1 million views or impressions, I guess, on Twitter, which doesn't mean a whole lot, but a lot of people are talking about this right now. Could this be? Could the UFC be rewarding him because they feel bad for him because he sat out for all this time? I don't know how I feel about this yet because, again, this was just literally posted like an hour ago. But there is a chance they would offer Makhachev, which would completely ruin the sport, would make absolutely no sense. We have Arman Tsarukyan, who's the clear-cut #1 contender. But the UFC's been giving out undeserved title shot after undeserved title shot, whether it be Sean Strickland, Marlon Vera, who else? I'm not even thinking right now. Time and time again, there's been undeserved title shots. So is it, out of the realm of possibility? I know there's going to be someone down in the comments. Let me clear this up. Arman's suspension is for 6 months retroactive to the date that the incident occurred. So therefore, he is available to fight in October. He could fight in October in Abu Dhabi. Arman is available. Arman is ready. As long as he does that bullying PSA, which he's come out and said that he plans on doing. So he's available for October. If Chandler gets to jump the gun, that is an outright embarrassment to the sport. But also on top of that, he's being offered a title shot in October. But you know what? I'll turn down that title shot if I get an insurance from Conor that he wants to fight in the Sphere. So he's willing to turn down a title shot for a hypothetical fight against Conor McGregor. And also, as much as the title shot ruins the sport, it goes to show he could have fought one time and got a title shot in the meantime while he waited for Conor. But on top of that, people are going to say this is a great reward and this is privilege. I mean, this is better than what I thought he would get if he were to get this. But what is it a really reward for? Because he's not getting pay-per-view points, okay? And Makhachev's going to wreck him bad. Does he have a chance in the first minute or two? Sure. Makhachev will wreck him badly. So for him to even get this shot would be ludicrous. But he's not going to get pay-per-view points. He'll get wrecked by Makhachev. And then he'll say, oh, I still want to fight Conor. I'm still looking to fight Conor. If he wins the title, and he could fluke a win. He does have nasty KO power. If he wins the title, what an embarrassment and travesty that will be for the division because he'll immediately call out Conor McGregor to defend his title. What an embarrassment that would be. Then he tweets out, good old-fashioned, passionate American wrestling, tag something, beat Sambo all day. To me, what this tells me, I don't think he's actually been offered the Makhachev fight. I think he's trying to coax Conor out. Like, Conor, hurry up and fight me. Hurry up and fight me because if not, I might finally move on. Like a jealous ex-girlfriend. Like he's trying to elicit a reaction out of Conor. And Conor's going to be like, oh, I don't give a fuck. Go do what you want to do. And worst case scenario, you win. I get a free title shot. So I hope this doesn't happen. I pray this doesn't happen. I feel like Michael Chandler's blowing smoke up our ass. If this really was factual, he wouldn't ruin the UFC's announcement. And I doubt this happens at the Sphere. The Sphere, I already have my doubts about the Sphere, but we're not going to get into that. And then two other tweets. Quote, no thanks. And then he says, dash retire, man. We good. What is that about? Is Conor turning down the fight? Does this have something to do with Dustin Poirier? I don't know. Dustin Poirier's been talking recently. I don't know. But no thanks. And then he says, retire, man. We're good. Like, is this him finally acknowledging he's going to move on from Conor? And again, I'm just speculating on this. This is like my honest reaction. I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about this because this just happened literally right basically before I hit record on this video. And then the last tweet, he says, I've been targeting your ass for 8 years. Good old-fashioned, passionate, blank wrestling, beats Dagestani Sambo every day of the week. Yeah, you couldn't even out-wrestle Dustin Poirier, who we just finished. So, and Poirier, arguably a better version of Poirier. So granted he did take him down, but I'm just saying, you get my point. He lost to Poirier. So it seems to me like he's desperate to try to make good on the years that he's wasted, and now he's trying to drum up interest in a potential title shot against Islam Makhachev. But I find it hard to believe that would happen. Michael Chandler's delusional. Hopefully he finally moves on. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I still do not believe the Chandler-McGregor fight will happen. I definitely don't believe it'll happen in the Sphere. If it did happen, if you told me Chandler-McGregor was going to happen, it probably happens December or next year. If you told me for sure it was going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen at all, but he's not going to fight him in the Sphere. I don't think he's going to fight him unless they add a new pay-per-view date, you know. If they make the Sphere a fight night and then they add another pay-per-view date, then maybe it could happen then. But there's just too much to go off of right now. There's too many, you know, breadcrumbs that leads me to believe Conor McGregor and UFC and Dana White are not on good terms right now, especially after he pulled out of UFC 303. So let me know what you guys think of all this down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and thank you for watching.